Alright, so this is gonna be a bit of a different type of video. So, last week I put out my Index Magic System video, and also I just want to say thanks to everyone who watched it. That video did really, really well. Yeah, thank you. But you might have noticed it was really short. And initially when I recorded it, it wasn't. It was initially about 15 minutes. But I realized about 2/3 of the video were just me ranting about certain things. And when I watched it through in editing, I realized it didn't have much to do with the topic at hand, and also didn't properly articulate what I meant to say there. So instead you're getting this video, where I'm just going to, completely unscripted, I've got some notes, that's it. I'm just gonna sit here and fucking bitch about some of the things in the Toaru in the Toaru franchise. Specifically, how it deals with the magic side versus the Esper side in the anime. So, I feel like a bit of an introduction is in order. I am a classics major. I study mythology and also history and philosophy, but my emphasis is on the mythology aspects of Greece and Rome. I also am really big into like Norse stuff and Aztec. I love mythologies, I love dead religions, I love currently living religions. I enjoy studying people's beliefs. So, when I first watched Index, that was like fucking heaven to me, getting to see them use religion, mythology, and folklore to create a complex magic system. And then when I read the light novels, I realized, oh my god, it's so much better represented there. So, what do I mean by this? Because it isn't just... Alright, I guess I'm gonna start with, Season 3. Let's just get the fucking elephant out of the room. So, for those of you who did not watch Season 3 of Index, or more importantly, I guess those of you who've watched it and didn't read the light novels, you're probably already aware of this, but if you're not, Season 3 rushed the adaptation. Everything was very condensed and ill-described, they didn't really go into depth on stuff, and it was just a bit of a mess of an adaptation. Which is kind of surprising because I checked. Season 1 covered the first 6 light novels. Season 2 covered the next 6, going from Volume 7 to Volume 13. And then Season 3 only covered 2 extra volumes. It went from 14 to 22. So why didn't they just do it right? Like, it really shouldn't seem that difficult to cram an extra 2 parts in, until you realize what Season 3 was doing. One of the benefits Seasons 1 and 2 had is they're almost all set up. It's all world building, character building, showing relationships, developing the plot threads that will go into Season 3. Season 3 is the climax. It's where all of this shit finally hits the fan. We get to see the resolution for all of this buildup we've been reading about for fucking 13 light novels. Well, realistically more like 18, but whatever. But the anime didn't really do that. I mean, you do get to see World War III, you do get to see Accelerator coming to terms with himself and realizing he wants to protect Last Order. You get all of the major character beats, but they aren't given the time and weight that they really deserved. Also, the CGI didn't get better, and that's just a tragedy. But even ignoring Season 3's rushed and compressed timescale, like, the anime as a whole, I feel, kind of neglects the magic side, or at least makes it less interesting. And now, part of this, at least in my opinion, from my perspective, is because some of the early magic arcs are some of the worst in Index overall. That's mostly just because, to me, Index is all about the characters and the world, and those weren't very well established early on. It's not the fault necessarily of the system, just of how it was kind of a casualty of being the first. Like, when it comes to Espers, our first really good science arc is Accelerator. But also, that's about 80% because of how fucking good of a villain Accelerator is. Meanwhile, you know, we had some good magic. We had some good magical moments. You get the Alchemist fight, and that one is wonderful. And the Angel arc is okay, I guess. Like, for the last video, I actually went through and wrote down every arc by light novel, and checked how many I would classify as purely magical, how many I would classify as purely science, and how many I would classify as either both or neither. And magic won, like, a lot. More books are, in my opinion, magic-oriented than science-oriented. And yet, as an anime watcher, I don't feel like that's properly represented. And now, a pretty big thing that contributes to this is Railgun and Accelerator, because those don't really have a lot of magic in them. I mean, Accelerator kind of, but especially Railgun, which, for a lot of people, I think is a great introduction to the series, sets you up with this expectation for the science side. It's all science, all espers. There's no magic. There's Academy City, espers, science, woo. They fight robots and use science and physics to figure out their problems, and it's all about the internal politics of Academy City, not the global politics between Academy City and everyone else, which is, in its essence, what the magic side is really about. All the magic plotlines revolve around either people breaking into Academy City, people doing shady shit in Academy City, but with magic, or Academy City's very existence being an affront to God themselves. And so, you run into this issue where, if you're an anime-only watcher, the magic arcs are condensed, and the early ones are boring, and the more interesting stuff is all science, so you start to tune out the magic side. I know I did. I fucking love the magic side now, but when I first watched the anime, I started with Railgun, then I watched Index 1, then Railgun S, then Index 2. And I didn't give a fuck about the magic stuff halfway through Index. I was just sitting there going, okay, this is fine. But every science arc, I was super hyped. And I think a big part of it is just the concept of Academy City. So, Academy City is hands down the coolest thing in Index. I feel like everybody agrees on this. It's a wonderful setting, and it sets up the stories so well. Everyone we care about is from Academy City. It's just the center of the narrative. And magic isn't supposed to be in Academy City. So you always have to give an explanation for why we're doing a magic story in Academy City. Or, we have to leave Academy City, which makes the story less engaging. Because, to me, one of the things that makes Index so unique is no other story has Academy City, or anything that feels like it. You don't get these sci-fi, but set in the modern day, with espers and just... It's a very unique location that I find hard to describe, and it has such a striking visual and actual identity that I want to know more about it. I'm constantly interested in it. Whereas when we're going to these magical locations, generally we're just going to another church. Sometimes it's more interesting than that. Like, again, going back to World War III, that is primarily a magic side thing. I mean, yes, science side is involved, but the primary catalyst is God's Right Seat and, various magic side organizations. And that makes it so cool! Seeing all of the dynamics between them and Toma and Index and everyone having their all motivations, and it's wonderful! But it isn't the standard for the magic arcs, I guess. It's like 1 out of 10 is really fucking cool, and the rest are just kind of, "Aw man, Toma, a wizard broke in, go punch him." And that's it. Like, that's how every arc ends, I'm aware, is even on the science side, it's Toma punches someone in the face. And I guess that brings me to another issue I have, not with Index specifically, but with the original Testament. And that's, I find Toma in the OT, especially in anime form, to be a fucking boring protagonist. Like, comparing him to Misaka or Accelerator, he just doesn't have the same kind of pop and flair. Now, I love Toma. The fucking Magic God arc, Light Novel 10 specifically, is one of my favorite things I've ever experienced. And that is almost exclusively because of Toma and his character development. But I feel like that doesn't really get going until the very end of the OT. And so when you're watching the most boring part of the least interesting character. Because, well, if you go and watch Railgun, Misaka's interesting right from the start because she's already a fully fleshed out character. Toma, he has to be built up in Index. And then eventually, he gets really good. But he's very lame in the beginning, and we don't have good supplemental magic characters. I'ma just say it, I find Style and Kanzaki really boring. I like other magic side characters. almost all of the Amakusa are better than Style and Kanzaki. And Tsuchimikado is okay. But, like, the early arcs where it's, aw man, Toma and Style are gonna go beat up an alchemist. Like, the alchemist fight is cool. And Toma getting his arms cut off and it turning into a fucking dragon is badass. But everything else about the arc, I could take it or leave it. I guess what I'm trying to get at here is, I think Index is at its best when it comes to the magic stuff. Either in the New Testament, which is wonderful, and I'm trying not to spoil it, because it hasn't been animated yet, and I know anime-only people are probably still listening to this. But also when it has the magic and science kind of colliding, when we get to see these different worldviews. Now, Index is always at its best when it has different parties colliding. When we get to see Misaka and Toma interacting, I feel like they're both at their best. Accelerator is at his best when he's dealing with bullshit he's not comfortable with and can't just be an edgy dickhead who kills everything. But when it comes to the magic, it really benefits from having that science to play off of in a way that isn't just, fuck technology, I believe in Jesus. Because, well, that's not very compelling. And I know I might just sound like someone who hates the magic side. I really don't. And in the light novels, it is much better, because we get character thoughts in a more interesting and in-depth kind of way. And also, the light novels do a much better way of explaining the magic, which also holds true for the Esper powers, but I feel like those are a bit easier for most people to grasp, because they're just using real-life physics, whereas how many people understood the Aztec obsidian knife flaying someone and reflecting the light of Venus thing? Like, how many of you were just coming into this with a pre-existing knowledge of Aztec lore and mythology and religion? I don't know, am I at fault here? Like, this has turned less from me defending an argument to me having an existential crisis, but I really don't know how the fuck they took the magic system and made it not as great. It has to be the rushed production and just the limitations of an animated format, right? And the Esper powers, for some reason, have just never suffered this. And I think that is in large part due to Railgun. Because that anime serves as such a good explanation and exploration of the Esper side and the science community. And if you come into it like I did with that as your introduction, it really paints a picture of how Index should be viewed. Which is not how it actually should be. You should view magic and science as equally important. But if you enter with a pre-existing bias towards one side, you're just going to keep that bias. And while I think the later magic arcs become amazing, and should have already become amazing in the anime if it didn't just fuck up World War III, who cares about the climax of 20 light novels? We were 22 books deep, and they fucked it up! How do you do that? But also, I guess I have one more thing I want to just bitch about. And that's Index herself. Show of hands, how many of you actually like Index? How many of you view her as a compelling and interesting character? Because every time Index gets a bunch of focus and, like, hype in the show, I'm just kind of sitting there going, okay, but she can't do anything. She has no powers. And, I mean, that's not actually true. She does, kind of. But how many fights has Index been in? And no, the John Pensmode fight does not count. Toma dealt with that. Because she can't use magic and isn't an Esper and doesn't have something like Imagine Breaker, she's just kind of a dead character. I mean, she serves as some exposition, but most of the time, she's just a plot device. Like, at least Last Order, who I think is the most comparable character in terms of ability to do things in the plot, has that wonderful thing where at any moment she could just disconnect Accelerator from the Misaka network and kill him. Index just spends most of her time chilling in Toma's house, eating his food and complaining. And now, I don't always mind Index. I think she's an okay character. Just, out of all of the characters who get a bunch of prominence, I feel like she's the least important and the least interesting. She gets things to do sometimes, but also, you know, she's the titular character. And for the most part, she's just left out of the action, or otherwise is a detriment to the action. She serves to motivate characters and to have the plot revolve around her, without ever actively doing anything herself. She kinda reminds me of Haruhi from The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, but with significantly less personality, and also, just quick tangent, why the fuck is she so mean to Toma? Like, this man has been nothing but nice to you, and you attack him at nearly all opportunities. Why can't Toma attract nice girls? Why doesn't he just invite Itsuwa to live with him? She's much more pleasant. Also, friendly reminder that on this channel, we stan Itsuwa. Like, I know Misaka's a tsundere and therefore wonderful, but Itsuwa, like, blessed. God, what the fuck is this video? I guess what I'm trying to get at is the Index anime disappointed me with how it handled magic. The whole series as a whole, I feel, has a skew towards the Esper side. Even though it spends more time on the magic side, the Esper stuff ends up being more compelling and interesting, at least early on. As it goes on, magic gets better and better. I don't know if this is just a me problem. Thanks for watching all of my videos about Index. They do really well. And yeah, this has been probably my worst and most rambly video. Bye!